Did you know that your great-great-grandparents' house was far more functional than the vast majority of today's tract homes? Well, today we are rediscovering 15 forgotten home features that we definitely need to bring back to today's homes. These features solved real-world problems that everybody is dealing with, and they bring a lot of beauty as well as charm to today's homes. We are going to take you on a journey all through the home, from the entrance to the bedrooms, the bathrooms, the upstairs and downstairs. So make sure you watch this entire video so you can journey through the entire house with me. Let's start our journey at the very beginning, which is the entrance to the home. I want to tell you about a door design that your grandparents had figured out perfectly. Most front doors are either fully open, which can allow a ton of bugs inside the home, or fully closed, which shuts off all the fresh air as well as the sunlight and airflow. There's really no middle ground with today's doors. But in many houses from yesteryear, they had a great solution to this, and that was called a Dutch door. These were split doors that had the top half would open up and be available for airflow, and you could see outside and get sunlight, and then the bottom would stay locked and shut, so it gave you a little bit of security. Dutch doors were actually quite standard in many farmhouses throughout Europe as well as America since the 1600s. And that's because they solved real problems. Dutch doors helped solve the problem of ventilation. It got hot in the summer, so you could open that door and get a beautiful cross breeze. This was before screen doors were common, so you needed to make sure if you were out on the farm that chickens and cows and goats didn't come in your house, and your little kids didn't leave the house either. Having that door that was locked on the bottom half was a lifesaver. If you grew up with the Dutch door, leave a comment below to let us know if you loved it or if you kind of hated it. I'd love to know what it's like to live with one. And while I was doing research for this video, I found out that Dutch doors are actually coming back in a big way. There are modern day companies making these Dutch doors. There's Simpson Door Company as well as Masonite, and they both produce Dutch doors. Oh, and if you're new around here, my name is Carrie. I am a designer as well as founder of the blog Petty Modern, and we're all about affordable modern home decor and bringing you tons of interior design ideas and trends. So hit subscribe if you'd like more videos like this. Now, this next home feature is something that's plaguing a lot of us that are lovers of Amazon and getting things delivered to our home, and that is a problem around package theft. This ingenious feature from yesterday's homes is definitely something that served almost as a built-in Amazon locker before Amazon was even a company. I am talking about milk doors. These were small insulated compartments that had a door on each side that were in the rear of the house, usually near the kitchen somewhere. The milkman could come by and deliver fresh milk and open the exterior door and place the milk inside, and then he would close the door, and you could only open that interior door if the exterior door was closed. It also had some insulation to help the milk stay cold. These were basically standard throughout American homes throughout the 1890s all the way to the 1950s, because having milk delivered every few days was just a fact of life and part of our daily lives. Some of these even had a built-in ordering system, so it had a little dial or some kind of a message system that would let the milkman know what your order was going to be for the next delivery. If you remember when the milkman delivered milk to your home, let me know down in the comments below. I'd love to hear about your experience. And while researching this video, I found that there is a company that are bringing these milk doors back. There's one called Fresh Portal that is designing these doors with modern conveniences, and they have security features, they have Wi-Fi features, and that insulation and everything. And that's something that you can get and build into your exterior wall, so you can have your own package delivery or grocery delivery door right built into your home. There's also something called a Costco door, which is very similar to this idea, where they have a small door between their pantry and their garage, and that way they can open it up, put their Costco and other grocery deliveries right into their pantry from their garage. And speaking of renovations, if you're thinking about doing a home renovation or a makeover, I've got a great free resource for you. It is my room makeover planner and checklist, and this will help you plan your project. It has a place to plan your layout. It'll help you figure out what you want to keep, what you need to get, help you build your budget. So download your copy today. It's at pennymodern.com/freebies, and that link is down in the description. So this next one is one that kind of annoys me a lot about today's modern home. A lot of these builder grade homes, you basically open the front door and you're immediately in the living room. There is no entryway whatsoever. You're either in the kitchen or you're in the living room immediately. What that does is all the cold air from in the winter, especially if you live in a colder climate, just rushes in and makes your whole home very cold. And then in the summer, it has the opposite effect. All the hot air gets in, especially if it's windy. I live here in San Diego, so I have this problem. There's really nothing to protect you or no kind of buffer between the outside elements and the inside of your home. I live in Southern California. Space is at a premium. Nobody has a real entryway here. You just pop into your living room and you gotta figure things out. That feature that I'm talking about is called a vestibule. And if you live in the Midwest or maybe the Northeast, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's basically like an airlock for your home. So here is how a vestibule works. You open the front door, you come into a small room that it has in front of you a door to the actual entrance of your home. And so because you open that outside door, then you close it, and then that will lock the air in that small room. Then you open the door to your home and you're not gonna allow all this cold air into your home. Older homes that were built anywhere from the 1880s through the 1940s, especially in colder climates, they definitely had these vestibules. They understood something that we seem to have forgotten, that you need a transition zone between the outside and the inside of your home. So before people had central heat, and every ounce of warm air was very valuable in winter. You wanted to keep as much warm air inside your house as possible, so they built these to act as that buffer and almost like an airlock, so that way they could conserve the energy and keep their home heated. And these were also small entryway rooms that served as a mudroom. You could deposit your muddy boots, take off your wet jacket, and put your umbrellas and things like that. That way when you go into your house, you're not dragging mud and water and dirt inside with you. If you grew up with a vestibule or an entryway you remember using in the wintertime as that transition zone, leave us a comment down below. And now that we've talked all about our entryway to the house, we're gonna go down the hallway and see a couple more home features that I think we should bring back. Do you remember what used to be in most hallways back in the day? And if it wasn't in your hallway, it was probably in your kitchen. I am talking about the telephone. If you grew up in a house built before 1960, you probably remember those little arched nooks that were built into hallways and sometimes kitchens that were built specifically to house our telephones. And some of us are old enough to remember that telephones used to be wired, so you had to have a space to house that big clunky phone, and you also had a little shelf there, and you might have had a small corkboard to add notes and have to-do lists, or maybe put mail and have a little mail slot there or a mail holder. And it really served as a mini command center where people took their phone calls from friends, family, or people they know. Telephone nooks were definitely standard in homes in the 1920s throughout the 1960s because a lot of homes only had one telephone in them and one telephone line, and it was in that central location. If you remember your mom or dad or even yourself sitting in that telephone nook, maybe sitting on the floor or a little bench that was there, or maybe even dialing on one of those rotary style phones, leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear what your experience and memories were like having that phone in your hallway or your kitchen. So how could we interpret this in a modern way? I really think having a command center is a great way, which is basically a place where you maybe have an Amazon Echo product that's Wi-Fi enabled and can communicate messages, and it's that central hub of communication. Another interpretation of that today is a charging station. We are seeing people put in charging stations in a variety of ways for their phones because all teenagers are always running out of energy on their phone, and then you get these cords are going everywhere. So people are installing charging stations, and those are either a drawer in the kitchen that has actually outlets and plugs in it, or on their wall, almost like a telephone nook, but they're putting in something on their wall that is a picture that you can open, and then behind it you would have little shelves as well as cords where you can put your phone in there to charge. If you are liking this video so far, hit that like button. It lets YouTube know that you like it, and it'll help other people just like you find this video. And as we journey down the hallway, we can't miss the doors that we always see in hallways, right? So if you think about the doors in your home, many of them definitely swing out and they take up a lot of precious space, and especially in smaller spaces like a small bathroom like I have, or maybe a dining room where you need a lot of area to put your dining table and allow the chairs to be pulled out. I am talking about a solution that Victorian era homes as well as craftsman style homes had a great solution, and that was the pocket door. Pocket doors were almost magical. Instead of swinging in like a normal door, they slide into the wall and become hidden because you can slide them all the way in between your drywall to completely hide them. And what that does, it frees up so much space inside your bathroom or dining room because it hides inside the wall. These doors were used in Victorian and craftsman homes in a lot of different ways, but sometimes they would separate an office from the living room or the dining room from the living room, and you could close the doors when you need them. Sometimes there was double pocket doors, and you could have them closed when you needed some privacy, or you could have them open and it felt just like a large doorway that was between the spaces, and it helped connect them and have some flow, especially when you were entertaining. And some of these pocket doors are completely beautiful in these historic homes. They have beautiful carved wood and they're made of real wood. They have beautiful hardware on them, or some of them also have glass on them or even stained glass, and they can be very beautiful features to add so much personality and charm to your home. Pocket doors are definitely coming back in a big way. We installed a pocket door in our previous home in our bathroom because the door took up too much room. The bathroom was so small, it was hard for me to be in there with my kid when he was little and trying to bathe him. After the pocket door was installed, it was a complete game changer for us. So as we leave the hallway, we're gonna go into the living space and talk about some of the features from homes long ago that were problem solving around wasted space. Sometimes you have awkward corners or areas underneath a window, or maybe you have a bay window or an end of a hallway that's just a waste of space, right? This forgotten home feature took care of that wasted space because it was a built-in window seat with storage. We used to see a lot of these built-in seats, these beautiful bay windows that had built-in seating in them, that had tons of storage, and they were a great way to use that wasted space. These were beautiful spaces that had a bench style seat. You would put a beautiful cushion on it, and then you could use it as a reading nook. And what's great about these is oftentimes they had a hinged lid that would lift up, and you could put all kinds of things in there, whether it was games, blankets, toys, or other items that you need to store out of sight. So if you grew up with a window seat, let us know down in the comments below what kind of house that was in. I'm sure they were in different Victorian and craftsman houses, but they were probably in other type of houses as well. And they are a very popular requested feature that people are adding to their homes, whether it is banquette style seating or a window seat under a beautiful window. People are starting to request those more and more today. This next home feature definitely makes me feel nostalgic for a beautiful Victorian style home that I used to live in San Francisco. And that feature is built-in bookcases, another feature that people just aren't doing anymore today. In many craftsman style homes, colonial revival homes, and even some Victorian era homes, people had a lot more built-ins than they do today. And built-in bookcases were definitely used a lot of times on either side of a fireplace or in the living room, in between the living room as well as the dining room. Built-in bookcases were very common throughout the 1900s through the 1940s here in America because they also helped use every ounce of space in a home. These provided massive amounts of storage without taking up a ton of space because they were actually built into the home, and they became beautiful architectural features. The best built-ins had adjustable shelves, decorative molding, and beautiful glass doors to bring a lot more personality. Some people are bringing back these built-in looking bookcases through DIY hacks, like using the IKEA Billy bookcase and attaching that to the wall. There are tons of tutorials right here on YouTube where people are building their own built-ins using IKEA stuff, and I am loving it. It's that same beautiful architectural character, but at a DIY and very affordable price. Now we're gonna move upstairs and check out the bedrooms. Let's go there now. Now I wanna tell you that sounds completely wild to people in the modern era, but it was completely commonplace in bygone past eras, as well as down in the deep south of America. And that was something that's really solved a problem about trying to sleep at night indoors during a hot summer night. It was absolutely unbearable to try to sleep at night before the rise of today's modern HVAC systems. But if you grew up in an old house in the South or the Midwest, you might remember this one, and that is sleeping porch. This was a screened-in porch on the second floor of a home that was completely screened in, and it was built for actually people to sleep in it. It was designed to be an outdoor bedroom. It was a place that you could sleep whenever it was hot out because you would get that beautiful evening breeze. It might even get a little chilly at night because you had all that fresh air coming into the room. You could drag a bed or even have a day bed out there and have a place to sleep that was nice and cool June through September. Sleeping porches were definitely something that was fairly standard in a lot of homes in certain parts of our country throughout the 1890s up to the 1930s because people wanted to sleep outside and have that fresh air. It was also before our modern HVAC systems. This was also during a time when doctors promoted fresh air, especially sleeping in fresh air, as a way to prevent certain diseases, especially respiratory disease or other diseases of the time. And while researching this, I did find out that sleeping porches are definitely making a comeback. People are loving that indoor-outdoor connection, indoor-outdoor living, and people are having these screened-in porches off the back of their home, and why not use them to have a day bed in them and have your sleeping porch, or maybe even just a reading porch where you can relax and read, or maybe take a snooze. And now that we've talked a little bit about bedrooms, we also can't miss the bathrooms, and we're gonna talk about a home feature from bygone eras that really turned something that was utilitarian into a beautiful work of art. Now, this next one is something that's gonna make you definitely nostalgic for these old style, classic, traditional bathrooms. Now, we have a bathtub here, and it is just a normal, very useful, very blah bathtub. There's really nothing special about today's bath. But if you grew up in a Victorian or maybe a craftsman home or just an older home from the 1920s or 1930s, you may remember your bathtub being a wow factor, being something that stands alone in the middle of the room, or really becomes a focal point because it was a clawfoot tub. This was a beautiful cast iron tub with a beautiful porcelain coating, and they really were built like tanks and they lasted a very long time. They're gonna last much longer than today's bathtubs, that's for sure. And they had those beautiful sculptural little feet on them that looked like little claws. These were often positioned in the center of your bathroom or under a window. They really became this architectural feature and a wow factor in these older homes. Clawfoot tubs were standard in a lot of American homes throughout the late 1800s through the 1930s, and they were the pinnacle of bathroom luxury. And that cast iron held heat incredibly well, which kept your bath water warmer for longer. And that porcelain finish was easy to clean and very stain resistant. If you remember taking a bath in a clawfoot tub, maybe at your own house or your grandma's house, leave a comment below if you wish you had a clawfoot tub today. These fell out of favor because people started doing built-in bathtubs like we have here, and so the clawfoot tub went away. But a lot of people are installing freestanding tubs today in larger bathrooms, more luxury bathrooms, and they're really trying to get these statement pieces. And I'd say some people are even using clawfoot tubs or something reminiscent of a clawfoot tub in today's modern luxury bathrooms. Now we can talk about something that was in some bathrooms or hallways, and it was in the bathroom we had growing up, and that is something that really helped you when it came to doing a chore that is never ending for most of us, which that is the chore of laundry. I'm talking about laundry chutes. These were very common in two-story homes that were built before 1960. The house I grew up in was built in the 1930s, and we had a large laundry chute in our linen closet in our bathroom. You could open that sucker up and throw your clothes down there, and they went straight down near the laundry room in our basement. As little kids, we used to hide in there, and that was one of our favorite hiding spots for playing hide and seek. Laundry chutes were absolutely brilliant because it really used gravity to help people get the laundry from point A to point B with very little effort. Some laundry chutes went up multiple levels. If you had a 3-story home, it went all the way through the home. Others had a small hamper at the bottom to catch the clothes. Now I know what you're thinking. Aren't these dangerous? Can't kids get stuck into them? Or maybe they're a fire risk. And yes, there's definitely been some issues in the past, and I think what they're doing today is there are a lot of building codes around laundry chutes. You would have to check your local building codes to make sure you could actually install one. Some people are installing modern laundry chutes, and they're just putting some safety features on them, such as child-proof locks, so kids can't get into the laundry chute, or I think they're much smaller today. Maybe it's just a pipe or something like that. And then some of them also have fireproof or fire-rated materials that they're built with to prevent any issues around fire. If you have a functioning laundry chute, could you imagine living without it? Or it is not a big deal and you don't even use it anymore? Let us know in the comments below. This next one is definitely something that kind of bothers me about modern houses because they really don't think about all the chores that we all have to do on a regular basis. And this is something, if you think about it, where do you put your ironing board today? Do you put it in a closet? Do you put it in your bedroom? Do you put it in your laundry area? This one is something that they had squared away in years past, and that is a fold-down built-in ironing board. If you grew up in a house built before 1960, you may remember having that little cupboard that stored your ironing board that was maybe in a hallway, a bedroom, the kitchen. Let us know in the comments, where was your fold-out ironing board located? I know I lived in a historic home in San Francisco, and we had a fold-out ironing board actually in the kitchen. So where was yours? But these were cute little cabinets built into the wall and had a little latch on it, and you'd open it, and then you could pull down your ironing board, do your ironing, and fold it away. It was always there for you. You didn't have to haul it out. It made it really easy to do your ironing. These were definitely standard throughout American homes throughout the 1930s through the 1960s because fabrics of our clothes were very different back then. This was before permanent press fabrics or the extreme popularity of synthetic fabrics. People had more cotton or linen fabrics that needed to be ironed. And I really like the idea of bringing these back today because they're just such a space saver, and I never know where to put my ironing board anyway. We so rarely use the ironing board, but we need to use it upon occasion. It would be nice to have it in a specially made cabinet ready for me to use whenever I want, maybe with an electrical outlet inside or a place to store my iron. And that would be a dream if I ever get my laundry room in a house. I would definitely have a built-in ironing board. Now let's talk about something that's been brilliantly repurposed when people had updated and modernized history. This was a problem that people had back in the day when people had coal furnaces. They would basically need to transport tons of coal from the delivery truck down to their furnace, which was often in the basement. I am talking about coal chutes. So these were a small little door on the exterior of the home that actually had a chute that would go into the basement. So here's how it would work. The coal delivery guy would pull his truck up and he would shovel coal directly into the chute, and it would slide down the chute to a bin that you had in your basement to store the coal. And these were a metal lined shaft at an angle that would allow the coal to slide down. And these were extremely common in American homes from the 1880s all the way to the 1950s, when coal was a source of heat, when people had these coal-fired furnaces. Now here's what's brilliant. People are repurposing these coal chutes and these areas of their home in a variety of ways. They're using them to actually deliver packages. So they're telling the delivery guy to use that door to deliver packages, and it'll go into a bin in their basement. This is a great way to take these historical features and really bring it to life in a modern way. And speaking of storage, here is another home feature from historical homes that is around storage, as well as food protection and preservation. Here is something that people used to solve the problem of: what do you do to store some of the produce that you really should not store in the refrigerator, but it does need to be in a cool, dark place? I'm talking about onions, potato, garlic, things like that. We need special storage for those items. If you grew up in a rural area, you may know exactly what I talk about: root cellars. This is a cool, dark room that people had in their basement, or some had a separate storage area outside their house dug into a hillside. This area was used to store apples, onions, potatoes, canned goods, preserves. So the earth or the basement would provide natural insulation, and it would keep these rooms extremely cool, especially in the summer, and it would also prevent freezing in the winter. And root cellars were surprisingly common in many American homes throughout the 1700s all the way to the 1950s, because refrigeration either was non-existent or extremely expensive, and a lot of people had farms and gardens, and they wanted to store their vegetables for long periods without them going bad. If you remember going down into your root cellar, or maybe your grandparents' root cellar, and seeing rows and jars of different preserves as well as canned goods or other items, let us know down in the comments below what they like to store in their root cellars. And I do believe that root cellars are coming back. A lot of people are embracing a homesteading type lifestyle where they're growing vegetables and crafting preserves and their own canned goods, and they need a place to store these items. People love to shop at Costco, and where are you going to put all your stuff that you buy at Costco? And a root cellar could be very good for that. There's also people like to prepare for disasters or emergencies, and they like to have some stockpiles of food as well as water, and that way they're prepared for anything that may come at them. So having a root cellar may be perfect for people like that as well. But now we can put them in basements or have electricity in them and really have them a little bit more of the modern life put into them and modern technology. Maybe you have a camera, maybe you have a security system, and that way you have your root cellar storing all your stuff, and it's gonna keep it cool and keep it good for many months. So this next home feature definitely adds a sense of mystery and intrigue to a home. And I actually had one of these in a couple of different homes that I lived in. One was from the Civil War era that I lived in while in college in Missouri, and another was in that San Francisco home that I lived in quite a while ago. And this is something that we don't have today, because when you go into someone's home today, a door is a door, a hallway is a hallway, a room is a room. There's no secrets in it anymore. But I'm talking about back in yesteryear, people had secret doors. So people would have secret doors that maybe looked like a bookcase, like we had in our home in San Francisco. And then when you open it, there's a whole nother room behind it. In one home I lived in, it looked like a framed poster. There was a frame on the wall, and that opened up, and there was an entire room behind it. So people had secret doors built into their homes for a variety of reasons. One of them would have been maybe during Prohibition. People maybe had a speakeasy that they were hiding, their liquor area or a bar. And other times during the Civil War, which was like the house I lived in Missouri, people were supporters of the Underground Railroad, and they actually had hidden rooms and secret doors installed in their house because of that. If you ever discovered a secret door or a hidden room in one of the houses that you've lived in, let us know down in the comments below. I'd love to hear your story. And secret doors are making a big comeback today, especially in some of these luxury rooms. People use secret doors to have things like a panic room, which is for security. Other people love a secret door to hide maybe a library or a reading nook. Other people might use a secret door to hide something like a man cave. And I think another feature that people are using more and more is in a kitchen. People are putting a secret door or maybe something that just looks like cabinetry, and you open it and there's actually something behind it, and that is the Butler's pantry, which is what we're going to talk about next. This next one is one of the solutions to problems that people experience with today's open concepts homes, where the kitchen is open to the rest of your living space. But before we get into it, I want to make sure if you love interior design and you want home decor and design ideas and inspiration, hit subscribe, because that's what we're all about here at Penny Modern. So imagine this, you're hosting a dinner party or maybe a holiday event, and your kitchen is a disaster. You got pots everywhere, you got dirty stuff, you got mixing bowls. Stuff is just all over the place, but it's all open to the rest of your house. So all of your guests see that mess. That is one of the top complaints that people have about having an open concept kitchen, especially if they love to entertain. So the solution they had squared away back in the day is the Butler's pantry. And before you think this was only in rich people's homes, this wasn't about having a butler, they just named it that. It was actually a space that was a prep area, a staging area, and it was a small space next to your kitchen that you would use to prep different meals. And it was really to serve as a buffer between the kitchen and wherever you wanted to entertain. These small rooms built onto the kitchen had a lot of things. They had counter space, they had a sink, they might have had an oven, and they had tons and tons of storage, so you could put your platters, your serveware, anything that you might need for entertaining. It also might house things that you don't get out very often, such as mixing bowls or mixer. So a lot of the behind the scenes work would happen in the Butler's pantry. So you could mix drinks, you could prepare your appetizer trays, and you could really do all the things that we do when we're prepping for entertaining, and that way you leave your kitchen for the actual cooking. You don't have as much of a mess in your kitchen. Butler's pantries were very common in upper middle class, all the way to wealthy people's homes from the 1880s through the 1930s, because they understood something that we forgot. The kitchen needs support spaces. And that's something that a lot of today's builders' homes and newer homes, they seem to forget. They just build this kitchen as an all-inclusive space. It's supposed to be your pantry. It's supposed to be for entertaining. It has to house all your serveware. And they just don't make kitchens big enough to do all that anymore. Butler's pantries are definitely making a resurgence, especially in higher end homes. A lot of designers and builders are getting requests for these Butler pantries to hide the mess when people have these open concept homes with a kitchen and a living room. Hopefully this was a little bit of a trip down memory lane, and you guys are fans of some of these forgotten home features like I am. I'd love to know which is your favorite down in the comments below, and if you have any stories about these home features. And I'd love to know if I missed any that you can share with the community, and maybe I can do a part 2 of this video. If you do want to get more home decor and interior design ideas and inspiration, then definitely watch this next video right here, and I'll see you in the next video.